Welcome back to the Mail Right podcast. We're excited for both ourselves, our guests, and all of you today because we have hit a historic milestone. We have done 300 shows, and John and I have not managed to kill each other or fire each other, which is pretty miraculous.
We're still talking to one another, aren't we?
Yeah. So we're lucky to have a guy who is that I'd never heard of before, but he is.
I haven't either.
He's a more generalized social media guru, and he has 45,000 followers on LinkedIn, and he's got a social media agency that he runs out of Irvine, California. He is definitely deeply steeped in the world of social media marketing and promotion. So we're extremely excited to have him on the show. We haven't talked about this particular category of digital marketing in quite a while. We're hoping that he has some really good tips for our audience, which, Neal, as I'm hoping that you know, is mostly real estate agents and brokers. So without any further ado, Neal, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners and our viewers and tell them a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. I'm what you would call a digital marketing, social media marketing author, speaker, consultant. So I need to update my bio because the agency I don't run anymore. It's a consultancy, but I work with a variety of businesses as a consultant. I call it Fractional CMO consulting. I also have a digital membership community where I offer group coaching. And then I've written a few books. So my first two books were about LinkedIn. My third book was about social media marketing strategy. My most recent book, which I published last year, was about influencer marketing. And I, even though I don't specialize in a particular industry, I do have clients in the real estate industry because really the concepts are universal, right? So I know that there's a lot of people like me that just do real estate. I mean, names that you probably know. But because I come from outside of the industry, I'm hoping to offer, somewhat of a fresh perspective that maybe you're not used to hearing. And because my background is B2B sales, which is why my first two books are about LinkedIn, I very much understand the sales aspect of the marketing. And with the publishing of my book on influencer marketing, just the role that influence with your customers, with your network, with your community, and how social media can help play a role in building more know, like, and trust for you and your community. So we're sort of jumping the gun there on what we're going to talk about today. But I bring a very holistic perspective. I'm not going to tell you you need to create like 5 Instagram reels a day to be successful, because that's BS, right? But there are things you can do to connect with people, increase visibility, that I believe every agent should do. And I hope that we get to cover those today.
Perfect. All right. And I'm, of course, here with my co-host. Jonathan Dinwood is an entrepreneur like myself who's chosen to dedicate some of his time to the real estate space. He's created an amazing real estate lead generation system that is a mix of WordPress and automation and Facebook marketing and CRM and a lot of really cool things. But the really unique thing that he's done is he's focused on a side of the market that many of us, myself included, kind of ignore, which is the people that are in their first 1 to 5 years inside their career. Many services are aimed at the real estate veteran, the real estate agent who's already making $300,000 or $400,000 a year. You could find a slew of services designed to satisfy their needs. John focuses on helping people who really need help the most. And I think that's really cool. But anyway, John, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to
sure. Just go over to the MailRight website. You should have your own website, your own platform. Don't rely on your broker's tools. You need your own database, your own website. We can help you with that. Back over to you, Robert.
Well, actually, in this case, I'm going to serve it right back up to you. I am in the process of making sure that Neal gets in front of my audience today and our podcast. So why don't you go ahead and tee up the first question for Neal?
Right. So, Neal, I think to say your title, your last book, is a great title at the right moment would be an understatement. The age of influence. It definitely is, isn't it? When it comes to online marketing, it's all about influence, isn't it? And being in front of the right people and having the right people. Now, when it comes to real estate, it's about building influence in your local community, isn't it? You know, being seen amongst all the other local competition as the person, the bee's knees, we would say in England. You know, the woman or man that you should, if you're looking to sell your house, they're the one that you should talk to first. So start off, got any insight, you know, why are so many real estate agents so bad at building influence, and B, in the broad, which we're going to get more specific, got any tips, or is it possible through social media and all the things we're going to talk about to build this influence?
Yeah, so I'm actually, I'm sort of like this startup specialist. So to me, a book is a startup. I'm already working on like my next book, right? But which is going to be more of a digital marketing playbook. And when we think about it, you know, John, what you offer is awesome, because you have the web aspect, which is for search engines. You have the email aspect, CRM, and then the social aspect with Facebook, right? And these are the three areas that agents need to be. So I know that there are some older agents that just stay away from all of this, but people still read emails. And if, you know, the whole idea about building influence and building like, know, and trust, it requires several touches, several iterations. And email is the best way to get that, right? As well as social media. The problem that most agents have is they look at email and social media as a way to bombard their database with promotions and not offering them any value. So immediately people unsubscribe, potentially report as spam, unfollow, and then agents wonder why email and why social media doesn't work for them. They got off to a bad start. And unfortunately, that can really, I mean, first impressions count, right? So it's really understanding the role that each of these have. It's really about keeping top of mind, keeping in touch, offering value. And what's amazing is that the agents that I know offer incredible value. When I need, you know, a painter to do some, you know, touch-up work outside, first person I call is my agent. If I'm looking for new pest control or you know, whatever, we found ants in our house. The agent knows all if they're a good agent. And even those that are 1 to 5 years in, you should be building out those echoes. So you should be able to be the key point person for everyone in your community who has a problem. Now we can extend this to, and you know, when we think about social media, we normally only think about what do I post on social media, but groups are extremely powerful. You have Facebook groups, loads of local communities have their own Facebook groups. You also have Nextdoor, which is an absolute effing goldmine. There are people day in and day out asking these sorts of questions that you can go in and answer. Pay it forward, build karma. They're not going to buy from you that day, but your name is going to get out there, right? You're going to get additional impressions. And guess what? The next time someone's looking for an answer, they're going to do a search and find your answer. Digital lives 24/7. Now, if you could meet someone, if you could meet a prospective customer, you know, every hour on the hour, every day, that's awesome, but you can't. Logistically, physically, we can't. That's where digital comes in. That's where email comes in. That's where social comes in. It allows us to be alive and be out there networking when we're asleep, potentially. And that's it. So it starts with that mindset, right? How do I offer value? And using social media to show one open house just listed for sale after another is an advertisement. It's not offering value. You're not, you know, people like, know, and trust people, not salespeople on social media. So the more of a person you are, the more you showcase your own personal lifestyle, you know, time you spend with your family, your own sort of passions, you build deeper emotional connections with people. And that's what social media is great at, that I think most agents really miss out on. So I know that was a lot. I'll just sort of stop there.
I thought it was a great answer, actually, and I'm not bum licking you. I actually thought that was a really insightful answer, Neal. Over to you, Robert.
So I'm kind of curious. I didn't get as deep into your historical background as I would have liked, but I did manage to figure out that you've got.
You're so naughty, Robert. I sent you all the links to do a
Well,
big dive on Neal. It was all
It
prepared.
started.
It was all prepared for you, Robert,
Yes,
and you just couldn't be bothered,
it
Robert, isn't
started.
it?
It
Yeah.
started in the back of a '65 VW bus. No, just but anyway.
so I did, however, manage to figure out that with your help, because you do have a great profile on your own website, nealschaffer.com, that you've got basically what appears to be 357,000 social followers of your own on 6 different platforms. Now, the platforms that real estate agents tend to focus on are Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. I'm not saying that those are the best or that those are the only. I'm just saying that historically speaking, that's what they tend to focus on. For Facebook, you have 38,000 followers. Instagram, you have 15,000 followers. And LinkedIn, you have 43,000 followers, at least according to your own promotion, essentially, like what you're telling the world. So I am curious to know, let's call it with Instagram, the 15,500 people that your Instagram account has. Now, Instagram is a platform that I can verify and tell you that real estate agents absolutely can and do make true money off that platform. They have people that follow them, especially in the luxury space. That's really where I've seen people really blow the doors off lead generation. I'm curious to know if you personally would have a tip for anybody in terms of like growing an Instagram audience.
Yeah. So, and Robert, that was bang on. For agents, I would also recommend Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Instagram, obviously, it skews younger, but you get more engagement, and there are more younger buyers today, right? So, if you want to serve the next generation of home buyers, you need to be on Instagram, period. They're not on Facebook, or they're not active on Facebook. Facebook is still where the older generations are, though. So, you still need to be there. How strategic is it going to be? And maybe the advertising platform is the most strategic thing in the groups, are more strategic than your own profile per se, although you can still get some decent engagement from your profile. And then you have LinkedIn, which I think is a gold mine. It's where the professionals are. It's where, the average household family income of a LinkedIn member is like, what, 75,000? I mean, it's a really lucrative audience. And because it's like a business networking audience, you're free to network with people there. That on Facebook is a little bit harder, right? A lot of people just want to keep their Facebook private. So on LinkedIn, not necessarily the case. And on Instagram, not necessarily the case. In the Instagram, it's a very open platform, just in terms of the content. I mean, you create a reel and you're getting a few hundred, if not a few thousand impressions, no matter how good or bad that reel is. That sort of organic, visibility is not possible today on a Facebook or LinkedIn. Although on a LinkedIn, we could talk about polls and PDFs, but I digress. So beginning with Instagram. Now, what's happened over time, and I have built up large audiences because my business has been social media marketing. I have to use these platforms, right? So, I joined LinkedIn back in 2004, one of the first million members. I joined Twitter 2008. I wrote a book on LinkedIn back in 2009. So I was on Instagram 2011 or 12 at the beginning, and I have a few thousand.
But
Posts.
Neal, you don't look old enough.
There's John with his English flattery.
But I will tell you that it takes time, right? It takes time for people to like you. Now, with every social network, and we've seen it most recently with Clubhouse, and we can talk about Clubhouse later if you'd like, but there are periods of time where people just join the platform. They're looking for people to follow. They upload their Facebook friends, which is how a lot of people, start. So if you have a lot of friends on Facebook that come to Instagram, that's one way in which you get followers. The other way is obviously being more active. And today, I think this is the main way. Now, over time, there have been a lot of bots that have just automatically unfollowed people. And I think most people have become jaded. They already have their core number of people that they're following, and they're not looking to follow more people. And now with Reels, their feeds are literally, full of content, right? So they're a lot more careful as to who they follow, and therefore organic growth in Instagram accounts has come to I won't say a halt, but it's very, very hard to grow an account organically today. But the way to do it is you need to get more visibility. You get more visibility through content and through engagement. The content that gets you the most visibility today are Reels. Now, you can get a Reel with a few thousand views and get no new followers from it. So, I don't think it's just one Reel, and I think it's also the content and what have you. But also the engagement is the other part, is going into the profiles of people in your community, or people that ate at the same restaurant that you ate at last night, that tag that, restaurant, commenting on other people. And I think a lot of people also forget just engaging with your own audience, engaging with your own followers and commenting on their content as well is a way to get exposure. So, I mean, there's no sort of secret or shortcut. It requires a few things. I mean, if you really want to grow it organically, that's sort of what it's going to require. You got to go out there and network. You got to go out there and sell. You got to go out there and meet people. It's no different in real life. You go to a networking meeting and you stand there in the corner, nothing happens. You go out and you start to proactively talk to people, and that's where you start to build up a list of business cards and contacts. It's the same thing with social media, with Instagram. So those are the two things. If you don't publish content, you're not going to get the visibility. When you want to publish content, publish it in the mediums that Instagram likes. Right now, that's Reels. But even static posts, static videos are okay. Use hashtags to get exposure, although the exposure is not what it used to be. We're finding with the data. But proactively, follow people, engage with people, like, comment. Almost spend as much time doing that as working on your own content. And I think that's part of the secret in how you can gain, a larger following over time. If you were to do that religiously, 15 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, you don't even have to publish on Instagram daily. If you could, that's great. But I know myself, it takes time to create really good content for the platform. But if you could spend 15 minutes a day first engaging with your own followers and then moving on to new people in your community, various ways you can find them, authentically, sharing comments, those are, it's not rocket science, but it requires a little bit of time and sweat equity. And most agents I know, they're like, Neal, I love what you're saying. I'll just give you $500. Can you do that for me? Right? Problem is, maybe I could, but guess what? Your name and branding are going to be out there when you're commenting and when you're liking. What happens when you accidentally like a competitor's post? What does that say about you, right? Or a comment on a competitor saying, great job. So there's a lot of things that you need to step up. You need to understand that this is an investment in your future, in your career. And I genuinely think these are things that, agents that are watching this or listening to the podcast, they really need to step up and do, but it's not time consuming. Once you get into the groove, it's like muscle memory, right? Once you get into it, 15 minutes a day, once you see the ROI, as you mentioned with luxury, I'm sure others have a lot of anecdotal stories they can share as well. It's just a natural part of doing business today, right? The name of my next book is probably going to be something along the lines of digital first marketing. We live in a digital first world. So I know that some states are open up more than others, but at the end of the day, this digital transformation of how we consume content, how we network, how we engage is not changing. We're not going back to the radio and TV. TV and radio on Clubhouse and on Netflix, it's all digital. So you got to having a digital way of doing business is a natural thing you need to learn how to do today. It's a core skill. It's like Microsoft Office. It's like email. You got to learn how to do it if you want to be successful going forward. That's what I think. And the younger you are, the more you understand that. It's usually the older generations who weren't born into the times we live in today that don't understand that need to be somewhat convinced. But those older people also get it because they understand business etiquette, networking etiquette. And once they realize that the tactical ways of doing it, they're really, really good at it. So I'll stop there.
That's great. I thought that was fantastic. We need to go for our break, Robert.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, real estate agents and brokers of all types and stripes, we're going to come back. And when we come back, I am going to diverge. I'm going to let John keep us as on target as he ever does, which is questionable. And then I'm going to actually move the conversation slightly because Neal does have something that almost none of our guests ever have, which is he seems to have a pretty dialed in understanding of SEO, or he has somebody working on his blog who does. And I have some questions about some of the things that I'm seeing him target that relate to social media. So I'll stay on topic, but there are some really creative things that he's done, and I want to ask some questions about those. So without any further ado, stay tuned. We'll be back with more good stuff for you. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to the Mail Right podcast. We're on episode 300. We're meeting with Neal Schaffer, who is a social media expert and actually appears to be a fairly competent SEO guy as well. We've been talking about LinkedIn. We've been talking about Pinterest. We've been talking about Instagram. We have given some very high level subject authoritative kind of commentary on which of these platforms you might want to invest your time into. Neal has given us the expert's view on which of these platforms is worthy of your time and which ones are easier or harder to to currently gain an audience, as well as a couple of really high-level tips on how you're going to grow an audience and engage with that audience. So that's what we've covered. John, take us away on where we're going to go.
Yeah, I just got a quick follow-through question from part one, and then throw it over to Robert. Of the three platforms we talked about Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. You didn't mention YouTube, and we're being big pushers that agents got to get onto YouTube. The other thing is, so I like your view on YouTube, and secondly, I think Neighbour is just going to become a dominant force because I know they're going public soon. They've got some major investors. They're going to be taking advertisement. I see Neighbour just growing and growing as a platform. And I actually, if it's handled in the right way, I can actually see it becoming a real competitor to Zillow in some ways. I'll just be quick to what your views about Neighbour is. So YouTube and Neighbour.
Neighbour as an N-E-I-G-H-B-O-R. In all honesty, it's an app that I've yet to hear of. So now I'm not part of the real estate industry. Maybe it's something that is it a real estate?
Oh no, I've used the wrong name.
I mean, Nextdoor.
Nextdoor, sorry. Yeah, Nextdoor, sorry.
Oh yeah, so I already brought up Nextdoor. It's huge. And I find there are people on Nextdoor that aren't even on Facebook probably, that they don't think of it as social media. It's more of just this local community message board. So once again, 15 minutes a day, go into Nextdoor, answer a few questions. You can get a lot done. Getting back to YouTube. So in digital marketing as a whole, there is there's content that lives for a long time and there's content that lives for a short time. And what I mean by this is the problem with social media, with the Instagrams, you spend time, you get the perfect reel, it's out there, 24 hours later, no one sees it. If they go to your profile, they may see it, but that's not necessarily the way that people mainly engage with stuff that's in the feed. Whereas a blog post, I still get traffic from blog posts from 10 years ago, right? If you look at the top 10 search results on Google, they often come from content that was created 6 months to 2 years ago. Podcasts, the same. I have my own podcast, Maximize Your Social Influence with Neal Schaffer. Last week was one of those rare weeks. My son's soccer team did really good. They went to a tournament. They went into the finals. And like I lost 3 days where I didn't get a podcast episode published, right? Life happens. But guess what? Like I was moving up the charts this week because you never know when people get exposed to it in Apple Podcasts, in Spotify, wherever. And then all of a sudden they start downloading your podcast. And then boom, your rankings go up. The same thing with YouTube. It's a search engine. It's a video search engine like Google is a blog search engine. And I know that the Tom Ferrys of the world, for the last 10 years, it's all about video, all about, yes, it's huge, right? Now, what's important about video to understand, though, is what are people searching for when they're searching for video? And this is where I might differ from some of the other real estate gurus that are out there. I know it's been impactful. I've met agents that have done really, really well. And sure, if you have a listing, shoot a video, put it up there with the title description of that address so that when people go searching, because the problem with agents in SEO, whether it is Google or whether it's YouTube, is that you're competing against Zillow. You're competing against Realtor.com. You're competing against Trulia, against Redfin. And that is not an easy battle to win for any agent or any broker that's listening. But on the YouTubes, you actually might have an advantage because they are not going to do that. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think they're doing that for every single listing that's on their platform. So use that to your advantage. And anytime someone looks for information about your community, it's not just for your listings, but also community information. You should be the one. If there's anybody who can monetize their community influence, it is an agent or broker, period. So that's why if you want to become a community influencer, look, if people want to become, health and makeup influencers, they post content about health and makeup or health and beauty. If you want to be a fitness influencer, you post content about fitness. Why aren't more agents posting more content about their community? right?
Lifestyle.
Could be a video.
Yeah.
And then in next door, hey, what pest control service do you recommend? Hey, I did a review of the top 7 pest control services. Check out my blog post, right? And then you bring them to your blog. They're in your pixel, et cetera, and maybe they sign up to your email list. But that I think is a bigger potential. But yes, if you have listings, put it up there, as well as all the other video platforms. If you're already doing Instagram stories, please do YouTube Shorts as well. It is an absolute no-brainer. I know it's out of beta and, well, close to getting out of beta, and I've seen some impressive numbers from there as well. So yes, I'm a huge fan of YouTube. I just think it should be used a little bit differently than you might think so.
Oh, amazing answer. Thank you so much.
No, it's a fantastic answer.
Yeah, and well, finally, Instagram last week said we're not a photo sharing platform, so they're all about video. So, just as I say you need to be digital first, and we say mobile first, you really got to be more and more video first if you want to have impact with social media. So use Instagram as sort of a testing bed, experiment with lots of video, and then put the good stuff up on YouTube would be my recommendation.
That was amazing. What I heard you say was, and for our audience, I heard Neal say, and this is a social media expert, but not necessarily a real estate expert. And here's what I heard him say that I really did like, which was community, community, community. And I agree with that in a very intimate and intense way. For so very long, every single real estate marketing company out in the marketplace has been focused on basically what you could call listing marketing. That's what Trulia does, that's what Zillow does. You go there, you see lots of listings, but they're not. They focus on the lifestyle of the area that they serve as an ancillary benefit. It is not something that they really pay that much attention to. They didn't recently do this, but they added Zillow Porchlight to their website, which nobody's ever even heard of and barely even understands what it is. And theoretically, they're supposed to be talking about lifestyle there, but there's not very much lifestyle commentary, which leads a wide open space for the true local experts to have a voice in the local lifestyle. And guess who that is? That is you, which is what Neal has been saying now twice inside the same podcast. Once when he was talking about how you'd call your realtor for a painter or a pest control guy or anything like that. And now again, in talking about, talking about the lifestyle locally and so on and so forth. I couldn't agree with you more, Neal. I'm going to take this conversation in a slightly different direction. This is very much a Robert tangent, and my audience and everybody else just kind of puts up with it because it doesn't happen often. But I've noticed that you are.
Are you sure? Are you sure about that, Robert?
No, but I'm going to say that. You're a world-class SEO guy. You've got probably, I'd guess, 50,000 people coming to your website. But here's what fascinates me. Is that you've got 2 top 10 posts that not even I thought of. And I look at this stuff every single day for the last 16 years straight. So when somebody surprises me, I'm very surprised. You've got 2 of your top 10 posts that are talking about Chinese social media apps. And I am crazy curious how you decided to target that segment of search to start with. And you've got a featured snippet on both of them, which for those that are uninitiated, that means that not only is he number 1, but Google has separated out his answer to that particular query above and beyond all other answers in such a way that you actually have to scroll down the page to see the other answers past Neal's answer. And he's talking about social media apps, which are the top 5 apps, and which are the top 5 social media services in general. And those are his 2 top posts on the subject. So how did you come up with that?
Wow. Well, first of all, I'm really honored that you said that. I was really focused on social media marketing. And what I began to realize really when I was writing The Age of Influence, but also post-COVID, when clients would come out to me and they're like, hey, we want your help with influencer marketing, but I'd realize that they didn't even have their own house in order. They weren't building a list. Their website SEO sucked. They didn't really have any content. So like, okay, we can do influencer marketing, but when people come back to your website, they're not going to convert. There's nothing to convert on. There's no, there's no lead magnets. There's no email. There's nothing going on. So there's an order of things that we should have in place. And that really is what began my journey in writing my next book is saying, okay, if in a digital first world, it's all about social, email, and search, then I have to become an expert in those. So I won't say I've been doing SEO that long, but I really started doing more SEO with intent starting about 2.5 years ago. And once again, I'm coming at it from a new, fresh perspective, hopefully, because I don't speak that same language, right? But because of that, it's like, okay, I don't have to worry about what's happened in SEO in the last 10 years. I can look about what it is today. And when I realized when we were talking about influencer marketing, well, in the digital world, Google is the biggest influence. You want to become their friend. Mm-hmm. How are ways we become their friend? So those blog posts you talk about were before I was very serious about SEO. I had a lot of guest bloggers. And I've had 3 different guest bloggers over the years. I opened up my blog to guest bloggers back in like 2010. It was not for SEO by any means. And there was a point where there was way more guest blog posts than my own blog posts, which at a certain point in 2019, I realized was a problem. But those were just truly organic posts that did well. Now, over time, I've gone back in, and what I did was, it was back in 2019, it might have been early 2020, I had over the course of 12 years, I started my blog in July of 2008, which helps as well. I had 1,600 blog posts, but guess what? 3/4 of them were receiving little or no traffic. I had blog posts about Google Plus, irrelevant. About, the best LinkedIn articles from 2010, irrelevant. So I decided at that point, if I want to buddy up with Google, if I want Google to really see my site as being a site of great, timely, fresh information, every single post has to be evergreen. And therefore, I got rid of 3/4 of those posts. I lost a lot of backlinks. It is what it is, but they just were not I did redirects. I did the things I should have done. But then I said, okay, the remaining 1/4 of the posts are all generating decent traffic. I want to make sure that they get into, first the top 100 and then the top 10 and every blog post should have a targeted keyword. Some of my bloggers chose targeted keywords that were irrelevant. Nobody was searching for them. And those are a lot of the ones that got deleted, right? So what I was left with were decent performing blog posts. I said, okay, if I can just make sure that every one of these is use Yoast. I've gone on beyond that now. Every blog post should have a specific targeted keyword. And more importantly, there should be actual search volume for that target keyword. Let me start there. So then I went through this process of optimizing all 400 of those posts. And now fast forward, I go through a process of beginning to republish posts after time if I feel that they're dropping in the rankings, but also I can add 100 words, 200 words, 300 words to, and then, revise the wording and things so it makes more sense. So I've gotten to the point now where it's become a very, very optimized machine. So back to your original question, my intent was not to target Chinese social media. It was the byproduct of having 3 different or 4 different guest bloggers who wrote about it. I do business in Japan. I actually speak Mandarin Chinese as well as Japanese. And maybe that's what attracted some of these bloggers. They saw me blog about Japan. And once one blogs about China, the other one's like, hey, I'd like to blog about China too. But yeah, they've gotten great rankings. But it's not strategic content for me. It doesn't necessarily lead me. I'm not a WeChat expert, right? So I keep those for the traffic, but I really focus on, blogging with intent. So right now I'm actually blogging 3 times a week. 1 republished post, 2 new posts. And it's a concept I'll be introducing in my book called a library of content. If you want to be an influencer, if you want to have authority in a certain subject, then do keyword research, find 52 different search queries and write independent blog posts for each one of those 52 posts over the course of a year, once a week. And I went through this process with influencer marketing. I wrote a book on influencer marketing. I had very little blog content published about it. I knew I needed to appear in search results so that people would buy my book. I went through the exercise. I've published like 49 out of the 52, but in search engine rankings right now, I'm beating out Hootsuite. I'm beating out Buffer. I'm beating out HubSpot. I'm beating out all these sites because I've built authority in that area. And that's the thing. Zillow and Trulia, they're not going to build authority on Carson City, Nevada, or Des Moines, Iowa, or Irvine, California. You can build that authority. You can beat the competition. And if they do have content about your city, it's probably pretty bad because they hired some cheap writer that doesn't live there to write it, right? So I'm a believer. If you go to the top 10...
Neal, we're going to wrap up the podcast part.
Oh, man. I was just getting started.
No, but Neal, You're amazing, Find. What knowledge. I can tell Robert. I can even tell you're amazing, Robert. You're gonna have to come. Can you stay on for another 10 minutes for bonus content? Is that okay? You'll be able to follow this conversation on the Mel Wright YouTube channel. I suggest that you go over and listen, because this is gold. I could tell by Robert's face. Over to you, Robert.
All right. So when we come back, we're gonna continue on. We're gonna do a slight tangent, because what Neal is giving us right now is a really good play-by-play what you should do if for some reason you drift into content marketing. Which, by the way, it seems like he refocused on. I'm not going to say drifted into it, but definitely
double down, triple down,
double down on it. And I agree with everything he's saying. And I'm going to have some comments about subject matter expertise and how it affects ranking, because that's basically what he was talking about. That's why 1,000-word post that he has on LinkedIn is number one for the key, or not number one, but number 7 for the keyword, what is LinkedIn? Which, if he is doing any affiliate marketing, is probably making him more money than almost anything that he's produced, and it's 1,000 words. So it's well worth the effort if for some reason you have a blog, if you're ever going to focus on content. But we'll get into that when we get to the bonus. In the meantime, though, for those that are going to tune out, not watch us on the Mail-Wright YouTube channel, which is where you're going to find this premium 10 minutes of extra content. If somebody wanted to find you, Neal, how would you prefer that they do that?
Well, I am Neal Schaffer, so I'm the real Neal, N-E-A-L. Don't make the Starbucks barista mistake. Last name is S-C-H-A-F-F-E-R, so it's Neal Schaffer everywhere on social media, nealschaffer.com. Maximize Your Social Influence podcast for your podcast listener. And then The Age of Influence is my latest book. If you're interested in that digital marketing playbook, I plan to offer a preview of that. A free preview ebook. It's literally in the proofreading stages. So go over to my site, nealschaffer.com. Just make sure you sign up on one of the widgets, and then you'll get updated when I have it.
Lovely. And John, how would you like people to find you, assuming that they wanted to?
Oh, instead of that, I just want to thank the new audience that joined us. Our actual listening and download figures have really grown over the past 3 to 4 months. It looks like we're going to become the premium real estate focused podcast in iTunes. I just want to thank you for keeping with us and the new people that have joined us. And thank you, Robert, for being my co-host over the past 2 years almost. I think we've built something very special. Back over to you, Robert.
What an honor. John keeps track of the numbers, but I already knew we were one of the top shows, and I'm waiting for the day that he comes back and says that we're the #1 show, because I'm sure that it's coming when it comes to real estate marketing. As far as I know, nobody does the deep dives. Our amazing guests like Neal are what help us get us there. John does all of that work. He attracts these guests that we have, and I'm super thrilled to be a part of all this. Neal, thank you for joining the show. For those of you who are listening, when you go home tonight, tune into us on your YouTube channel. Do John a favor, and me as well. Give us a thumbs up when you actually watch the video on YouTube. It helps a lot with the YouTube channel, and we'd appreciate it because we spend a lot of time doing this work for you. All right. See you on the bonus content. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back. We are now into the video bonus content. We're meeting with Neal Schaffer, who is not only a social media expert, but you could very easily qualify him as an SEO expert as well, based on his results, which is what I'm looking at. He had a number of really unique approaches. John was right. He was talking about my facial features. I've never seen somebody turn around I'm going to let other people post on my website kind of thing and turn it into a massive success, which is exactly what Neal did. So he's literally educating me as we're doing the podcast, where saying, hey, this is something you could do, and it could be successful if you turned around and focused on it. So you were in the middle of commenting as we went into bonus content time. You were talking about how you exactly approached this. You said that you had a strategy that you were outlining in your new book, where you were telling people to make 52 posts on 52 key topics, try to get them done one a week, throw them on your website, make sure they're topics that you want to keep talking about, which is what evergreen content really is. It's finding 52 things that are important for your business, important for you, and then saying that you're going to be willing to keep talking about those things and updating those things once a year, every year, which is what helps you maintain ranking, attract new links to old content, make that content more and more and more valuable to not only yourself, but to the end users over time. Would you agree with my assessment of what evergreen is?
Amen, brother.
All right. And so what additional, I mean, we could stick with SEO, but I wish I could show people what I'm looking at, but you're number 4 for how to monetize Instagram. You're number 1 for Chinese social media. You're number 1 for top Instagram influencers. You're number 1 for Chinese social media apps. You're number 1 for Facebook feature. You're number 1 for LinkedIn industry. So you've just killed it with this website. You have lots and lots of searches that are premium searches if you're a social media guy, and you're on the first page for all of them. So what additional tips might you have? Let's just say that you're a real estate agent or any other professional for that matter, and you're trying to break into the industry because you mentioned that things have changed. And I think that's what some of your book subject matter is how things have changed. So give us a little bit of a hack, if you would, and say, what would you focus on if you had to redo this all today?
Well, I want to keep it appropriate for the agents and the brokers.
Sure.
And, so I think basically you have 3 different things going on. I'd like to simplify it: the search, the email, the social.
Right.
So I think, first of all, get your database, get mail right, whatever you need to do, you got to get that in order. Your network is your most important asset. Your network is your net worth, as a great book by Porter Gale, by the way. But that's where you got to start, right? And I think, I know just from the broker perspective, I know some brokers that have agents that haven't added their emails to the database, right? And it drives the brokers crazy. Like, what are you thinking? So I would actually start there. But understand that if you're going to opt in, friends and stuff, you got to offer something of value. So sure, every once in a while, you open house party, come meet me, free wine. That's offering value, right? And that's the way I wish, more and more, wine and cheese tasting, whatever it is. But that's a great way to bring people in. And once people are brought in, maybe they're a friend, they're not looking to buy, but maybe they know someone that's looking to buy, or a relative that's looking to move to the area. You know what I mean? So with every, once you have people in your database, offer value. I was on a call actually today with a broker, and we were talking about content for Instagram. Mm-hmm. And I said, you know what? I happen to know that price is here because I have a friend, their lease expired in Irvine and they need to move out, and prices are like 40, 50% higher. But if you weren't in that situation of needing to move or looking for a house, you wouldn't know. So that's great information to tell people. They may not know how crazy the real estate market is right now, and they may want to cash out. Who knows, right? So right. And that could be something that could be included. Hey, we closed, I showed a sample of an Instagram graphic that says, 2019 average, sales price, average days on market, and then what it looks like in 2021. And it's like night and day, right? And it was a very, very powerful message. So there's various types of value that you can offer. Information about your community. A new ramen place opens up in town. You got to check it out. I mean, little things like that, I think, will keep people glued to your newsletters, which don't need to be more than monthly, I think. But offering value to keep them engaged, keep them wanting to open your emails, and so that's where I would start, in all honesty. Then it's like, okay, well, how do I get people onto my email list? And that's where the website could come in. It also is just getting into a habit. I'm sure most agents should be doing this, but whenever they're at a networking meeting, whenever they're at a listing, what have you, that they're making sure they get email addresses, right? And get people opted into their list. But the website also, in a similar way, has to offer value. Yes, it should have your listings. And yes, it should link up to everything you do in social and in your email, but that's where we can start to bring in the community content, right? Okay. And maybe some of the content is, the 5 best places to, the five best ramen restaurants in Las Vegas. I don't know. But it could also be, once a year, here are our golden picks for, best school, best soccer club, best ballet class. I mean, I don't know, whatever, homeowners or families are really interested in, you could have some gated content where you ask for an email address, and that way it helps build up your database as well. I don't know many agents that are doing it, but I think it's potential based on the value of the content that you offer. So, you have the email if you look at the funnel, right? I believe the email is closest to the bottom, right? You then have your website where you have people coming in. Hopefully you get email addresses or they contact you. And then above that, you have the social. And from the social, you want to bring people to your website. Well, you want them to get to know you as well. And that's the way you really need to position things, if that makes sense. So always thinking, in my mind, always thinking email. And when I say email, I mean CRM, I mean database, I mean logging calls, right? In addition to sending out, newsletters and reminders, what have you. But email first, then website, community influencer content. Think about creative ways in which you might be able to get an email address. We did our own unique analysis of home values and home sales over the last 12 months in this specific zip code or this specific city. This is data not available anywhere else. That's something someone may give up an email address for, right? And people used to do this with MLS listings, but now obviously just people go on Zillow and they can find the information. But and then the social is be yourself. And here's the thing: what I realized with the age of influence is that businesses can't be people. Only people can be people, and people resonate with people, right? So I believe the more personable you are in social media, the more friends you can make, the faster you're going to build a bigger like, know, and trust. The more corporate you are, as in showing image after image of, open house and just listed and for sale, the more corporate you are, it's going to be really, really hard for you to build out like, no interest. So be yourself. Yes, mix in that, when you have a new listing, please post it. But, in between those postings, show some of yourself, what you did today, picture your family, where you had dinner last night. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can talk about there, but I think you need to have that personal brand. And it's the people that have the agents that have the personal brand together with the experience and the know-how that I have seen in Orange County. Those agents that have done really well are those people. So I think that's to sum up the advice. Just take a 36,000 foot view. Where does all this fit in? I mean, that's sort of the system that I think you should all have. And paid social is an important part of that. Paid advertising to get more people, to get more eyeballs in the content, to get people to be exposed to your content, hopefully follow you, as well as your listings and open houses. But I would, if there's one other piece of advice I'd give just to end the 10 minutes, it would be events. With coronavirus ending, they want excuses to get outside and drink and meet other people. I'd have an open house even if there wasn't an open house. I'd almost have like a weekly event somewhere at a house or at a restaurant just to bring people together, right? One free glass of wine. Man, if you were to do that week in and week out, 52 weeks a year, imagine the number of friends that I'm thinking you're going to be able to make. So, and you know what? You can do it at different restaurants in your community. You get to know the owner there. They may say, hey, we can give you a discount. Maybe we'll give you, a free appetizer if you bring in 10 people. So then you begin to really network with community influencers, small business owners, right? Some of those small business owners might have 5,000 Instagram followers, may have 10, and maybe hey, we'll post your event on our profile, right? Then you begin to think of really becoming a community influencer and scaling that influence when you bring these other entities in.
Well, I'm just grinning and laughing, not out of not respect to you, Neal, but what a fabulous guest for our 300th show. It was meant to be. I've got to say, Neal, you've been, I don't know what Robert thinks, you've been one of the most impressive guests that we've had on this bloody podcast. What do you reckon, Robert?
Definitely one of those few people that promotes themselves as a thing and actually turns out to be the thing that they're promoting that they are. You're definitely an expert in your field. You're definitely a wide-ranging expert, which is extremely hard to find. And you seem to tackle learning the same way that the handful of truly exceptional professionals that I've met actually tackle learning, which is just because it's not in your core area, you still will learn it if it happens to affect your core area, which social media is a very, very wide net that you cast when you say, I'm gonna I'm going to focus on social media, because each platform is different. The mechanics are different demographics, which you've proven over and over that you understand which demographics go to each platform. So they're used for different things. A lot of experts don't even like intuitively understand that you should use LinkedIn differently than use, Instagram. That kind
and I found early on, after I wrote my book on LinkedIn, I don't want to be a one-trick pony, because the fact of the matter is not every business needs a LinkedIn. So you have a lot of these experts. Oh, you got to be on Clubhouse. Oh, you got to be on Twitter Spaces. It's like, no, you don't. Stop trying to evangelize a platform for your own business. That's called a conflict of interest. For me, it's all about the needs. All of my customers have different needs, and I need to have the expertise to be able to serve them. And that's been my mentality for the last decade. And that's why it's in my best interest to learn these things. And if I'm going to learn them, I want to put them in practice. And that's using my own brand, like, this unique way I've developed of SEO and what have you. So I appreciate that. And it is a challenge, but you got to love learning. I love learning because I know that, it's like a video game that never ends. The XP goes to the next level, the next level, the next level, next level. And I know that, with every client, I'm just upping my game, right? And I know I can just serve more people better with every iteration. And I really love that.
Well,
And
let's wrap it up, Robert, and
okay.
We'll see you next week. Over to you, Robert.
If we can have 30 seconds of your time when we turn the cameras off, I'd appreciate it, Neal. I linked something in chat. You can just glance at it really quick. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to the 300th episode. We're not kidding, John and I. This has been an exceptional show. Neal has really dropped a lot of pearls of wisdom about any number of different platforms and some overall high-level thinking that I personally would buy into, for whatever that means to any of you. So I suggest that you maybe check his stuff out. Certainly check out some of his blogs that he personally has written. He's got podcasts that he's done that you can find all over YouTube. I've already found about 20 or 30 episodes of various shows that he's been a guest speaker on. Some of them are notable shows. Some of them are people I've never heard of. Doesn't really matter. It seems like Neal has good stuff to say. So if I was you and you're asking me, how do I learn? I'd look up everything that there is to hear about this particular person and see if I buy into their total philosophy package. And if you do, then go out and give Neal some love. Show him, give him some money. Buy one of his books. All right. Well, that's it, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. John, whenever you're ready, we can sign off.